Good evening. The crash that nearly killed supermodel Nikki Taylor earlier this year happened when the driver of her car reached down to answer his cell phone and slammed into a utility pole. That accident focused new attention on the problem of distracted drivers, busy with phones, food, their CD players. What about you? Are you sometimes too busy with other things to drive safely? You can find out tonight by taking Dateline's distracted driving test. We'll tell you your risk and how to reduce it. We start tonight with Dennis Murphy.
What is up with these drivers? Slamming into things, weaving in and out of their lane. Why are they so crash prone? Because they're doing things while they drive that almost every one of us has been guilty of at some point.
Hello?
You know the drill. Yakking on a cell phone. Fussing with kids in the back seat. Fumbling with a pager. Trying to manage our lives while we barrel down the road. Driving while being thoroughly distracted.
If you're distracted, you might as well be drunk.
Dr. Sue Bailey, former head of the government's National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, says a quarter of all car accidents, more than 1.5 million a year, are caused by distracted driving. Accidents like this one in Maryland, where a driver dialing his cell phone bolted across 4 lanes of traffic and killed 2 people. And cell phones aren't the only potential fatal distractions. How about dashboard CD players, navigation devices, internet hookups? And check this out. Joel Pellinger, a New Jersey commuter, has turned his SUV into a mobile office. He routinely faxes, sets up meetings, emails his way down the road.
It's allowed me to be more productive. It's allowed my business to be more successful.
Maybe. But how much is too much? How much information and gadgetry can our driver brains absorb and still allow us to drive safely?
Being that usage of gadgets in general is going to continue to go up, we're going to see the numbers go up, the body count go up.
To give you an up-close look at what makes a driver distracted and a menace, Dateline went to the experts. We asked scientists at the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to help us put distraction to the test.
Good luck, Felicia.
Okay.
We recruited 12 volunteer drivers, gave them a handful of everyday but distracting tasks to perform as they drove. Things like popping in CDs, jotting down notes, and then set them off on an Ohio test track as 19 cameras recorded their every move, and you're along for the ride. Government engineer Liz Mazie will ride in the back seat with a handbrake in case driving gets woolly, and she'll be grading performance with 100 as a perfect score.
I have monitors back here that are tied to cameras that watch lane positions.
The rules are simple. The drivers have to stick to the 35-mile-per-hour speed limit and obey all the traffic signals. But here's the catch. At the same time, they have to do things like put on makeup, eat a snack, answer unexpected phone calls.
Hello?
In other words, drive while being distracted. The volunteers shrug it off. A piece of cake.
I feel very confident about my driving abilities.
I think I'm a very good driver.
Never go too fast, never go too slow, but when in doubt, hit the gas.
First up is Neil.
You'll need to write them down using a notepad and a pen that I'll give you.
Hot dogs.
His distraction test is to write down a list of grocery items as they're read to him over a hands-free cell phone.
Apples.
Notice what a hard time he's having keeping his eyes on the road. And he's a driving instructor with racing experience, so you'd think he'd have a leg up on our other drivers.
Potatoes.
But what Neil doesn't know is that just as in real-life driving, there's a surprise ahead. Look closely at this silver Saturn. Neil first sees it stopped at this intersection. But when he comes around again, it's a switcheroo. A fake car made of foam. And it's running the light broadside into it.
Yellow.
Even for this skilled driver, it's a close call. And others aren't so lucky. Jennifer cuts it so close that she actually scrapes a chunk off of the foam car. The distraction of writing things down costs her a fender bender.
This is lap 8 launch, lap 8 launch.
Another distracting task is all about mental exertion.
You're going to count backwards by 7s.
Oh, come on.
Counting backwards by 7s. Yikes. Talk about mental strain. But that's the point. This task is meant to simulate an intense conversation on a hands-free phone. Dr. Riley Garrett, a government scientist, says the task appears non-stressful.
Now, you don't have to take your hands off the wheel. You don't have to take your eyes off the road. All you're doing is thinking.
700 or 800.
But look at how the mental gymnastics discombobulate our drivers.
734.
And what's more, on this task, there's another surprise. This time, it's a barrel in a construction zone that suddenly tumbles over as the drivers pass.
746. I didn't do that.
Some drivers are so lost in the counting task, they just slam right into the barrel. And Roshni whacks it so hard, it goes spinning, leaving the car in need of repair.
Frank, we have a broken fog light lens.
The electronic scoreboard is starting to show dismal results. 100 is perfect, but the volunteers are racking up lots of 40s and 50s. Still, Allison, a college student, is perfectly confident she can outdo the others.
At least 95. 95
At least a 95? Hey, setting high marks for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Allison feels good about what's ahead because off the course in her own car, she multitasks all the time. Ride with her as Dateline did, and you'll see it. She juggles a stick shift, CDs, makeup, sometimes even taking both hands off the wheel to steer with her knees. But out here on the course with someone giving grades, Allison loses her cool. On one of her laps, she's been told to read out loud. You know how you see people reading the paper sometimes while they drive? Well, here, Allison is so caught up in the reading task,
Fear of desperation that's shown.
she veers right off the road.
Sorry about that.
And when she's asked to dial some phone numbers, she doesn't even notice the barrels coming at her.
Oh, sorry about that.
And as if the researchers hadn't thrown enough distractions at her, Allison makes up some of her own. Here, she takes off her seatbelt so she can adjust her jacket. The result? A car and driver swerving all over the place. She's not handling distraction well at all.
Wait, hold on a second. I almost hit a Saturn.
Out on a real highway, every one of Allison's swerves could put her right into the path of oncoming traffic, or off the road altogether.
She got me a little nervous a couple times. I mean, if that were a ditch, if that were a drop-off, a guardrail, anything, she'd have hit it.
So she made you the twitchiest as a passenger?
So far. Yeah, pretty much. Did you
grab a hold of the brake?
I did.
And then there's Dwayne. At work, he drives huge street sweepers and snowplows and logs some 70 hours a week behind the wheel.
How do you rate yourself? What kind of driver are you?
I like to think of myself as a good defensive driver.
So you'd think a distracting task like eating a candy bar while he drives wouldn't be that big of a deal. Everybody eats while they drive, right? But Dwayne loses points because he can't stick to the speed limit. And the next task throws him for a total loop. He's told to pop some CDs in and out of the dashboard player.
And I want you to insert them in alphabetical order by the artist.
This isn't the way you usually use your CD player, but the scientists are looking at something else. What happens when people fumble around in the car for something while they're driving? Dwayne is repeatedly forced to take his eyes off the road, and that momentary lapse leads to disaster. Another surprise. A plastic but very real-looking deer darted out at Dwayne from behind a bale of hay. Like all the surprises, the barrel, the foam car, the government scientists have precisely timed the deer's release so that a non-distracted driver should easily be able to avert it. But here we have one dead deer, one broken mirror, and one rattled snowplow driver.
I had my head down too long, and I didn't see the deer until the last second.
That's all it takes. Eyes off the road for just a second and bang. Makes him think about a dashboard CD player.
I think if I get my daughters one, it'll be a 6-changer that goes in the trunk where they can't play with it.
Now here's another gadget. You may not be familiar with it yet, but it's becoming a popular high-tech option in cars. A navigation device. Doug is a flower delivery man who spends a lot of time driving and talking in his everyday world.
Hey, I'm on my way back. Is there anything to pick up right now?
So how's this road warrior going to do?
Honestly, I feel I'm pretty confident behind the wheel, maybe a little too overconfident sometimes.
Before driving the course, he was trained on how to use the navigation device, but it's proving to be a bear. As he plugs in addresses, it's all he can do to stay in the lane.
Got one entered.
Hello.
And watch what happens on the lap where he has to write down a grocery list.
Pizza.
Okay.
Pizza.
I'm looking down, trying to make sure I'm writing what I'm supposed to write, and boom, car.
How startled were you? How rattled?
I was like, whoa, wasn't expecting that at all, you know? I'm like, oh man, that could have been awful for me and him.
Coffee?
Yeah, if I had my eyes on the road all the time, I would have seen it coming, but that was not the case, and someone could have lost a life.
But we haven't seen the worst of it yet. Maria is a union organizer, and when she let us drive along with her on her daily rounds, we saw that her car was a virtual office. She was dialing, writing, even flipping through the phone book. All routine stuff for her. She even dabs on lipstick. But now, out here on the test course, when she's asked to apply makeup as a distracting task, the lipstick thing doesn't go so well. Another bent mirror, and Maria is just getting started. Dialing, something we know she does in her own car all the time, is a struggle.
On that lap, I caught 4 times when you went out of the lane.
And on the grocery writing lap, it's disaster.
Okay.
Just watch.
Napkins.
The Saturn is in pieces, shattered. Out on the streets, this would have been one ugly crash.
You've totaled 2 vehicles. You probably have some injured people there.
Dateline has a special door prize for you.
Okay.
Actually, the front end prize. You remember this?
Yeah, but the light was green. I thought I could go, and he was supposed to stop.
At first, Maria is a little defensive. But the message she takes away from this is one for every multitasking driver who thinks it could never happen to them.
Hello? Things like that could happen in day-to-day life.
That's the point. They can happen,
and
just like that,
never happened.
right?
I've been lucky that, they could happen. So I've learned that maybe I should pay more attention to my driving than a lot of the other tasks that I do.
In the end, 7 of our 12 drivers had serious crashes or fender benders, and there were no perfect scores. 86 was the highest grade of the day. Our drivers found it nearly impossible to do 2 things at once in the car.
Whew, that was hard.
I think this is a real wake-up call for all of us.
And when Dr. Bailey reviewed the tapes and the field reports from the scientists on the track, the statistics told the story.
There was a dramatic deterioration in driving skills, as high as 15%. So you can see that you would be seriously impaired, as though you were drunk, in fact.
Coming up, your turn to take Dateline's distracted driving test. So grab a pencil and some paper. But first, a story that'll make you think twice before driving and dialing.
So now you've seen what happens when drivers, even good drivers, are distracted when behind the wheel. If that didn't convince you to put down your cell phone when you pick up your keys, maybe this will. The price one family paid for a phone call. Here again is Dennis Murphy.
Always singing. Even as a 2-year-old, Morgan Lee Penna was a sweetie who could sell a song and win your heart. Her parents adored her.
She was just the most perfect little baby girl that you could imagine.
Morgan was Rob and Patty Penna's first child. The suburban Philadelphia couple had worked hard and saved money for 7 years before they felt they could have a baby. But by the fall of 1999, their lives were falling contentedly into place. There was a brand new home and a beautiful little girl. They felt financially secure enough that Patty could quit her job as a daycare director. She was happy to be a stay-at-home mom.
That was the goal, to have lots of kids and just live happily ever after.
But the Penna's ever after was not to be the stuff of fairy tales. It was only 4 days after Patty's co-workers had thrown her a Halloween goodbye party. It was meant to be the kind of day she dreamed about. Nothing much to do, sharing time with Morgan.
See, that's the thing. I didn't have to do anything that day. I didn't have to go anywhere.
But Patty did go out that morning, just a few miles down the road, to visit Morgan's favorite cousin. She was driving home along this road with Morgan strapped safely in her car seat and back when it happened.
I didn't even know what hit me. Crash, just a big crash, and I was just spinning, and we hit an embankment, and I remembered thinking, what is happening?
As Patty went through this intersection, a driver dialing his cell phone ran a stop sign and smashed into her car, hitting her broadside by the rear seat where Morgan was sitting.
And I turned around to check on Morgan, and she was in her car seat. There was glass everywhere. And her little head was bleeding. And I just couldn't believe. Oh my God, not my baby.
911, where is emergency?
Ironically, the man who slammed into Patty then dialed 911 using the very same phone that had caused the crash.
Is anybody hurt? Stand by, stand by. All right, we got a baby that's not breathing. Yeah. Not breathing?
Then she stopped breathing, and I shook her, and I said, Morgan, Morgan, and she took a breath.
It was a fleeting sign of hope. Doctors tried all night to save the Penna's little girl, but there was nothing they could do.
They said she had the worst head injury they'd ever seen on a 2-year-old. She was hit so hard. We just had to let her go. So at 4:58 a.m., our baby took her last breath.
The driver who hit Patty was given 2 traffic tickets and paid a $50 fine. No criminal charges were filed because talking on a cell phone while driving is perfectly legal in Pennsylvania.
Whoops. I didn't see the traffic signal because I was on my cell phone. Is not illegal.
We're not talking about drugs or alcohol with this driver.
Right.
It's talking about being distracted, working the phone rather than driving.
Right.
The Pennas were shattered. The light of their life was gone because someone wanted to use his cell phone.
Had you ever thought about a phone being a risk?
No, absolutely not.
You carried a cell phone in your purse?
Yep. We were cell phone owners and users. I used them while driving with Morgan in the car. I mean, that's how ignorant I was. I had no idea.
This kind of thing?
Yeah.
Talking on the phone, driving, and
yep.
Morgan's in the backseat.
I did it too. I was completely unaware. That's when I became really mad because I've never heard once that you were not supposed to use these products while driving.
Patty channeled her rage and grief into finding out more about cell phones and driving. She surfed the internet, a foreign place to her till then. She dug up study after study concluding cell phones and cars are a dangerous combination. Yet she found almost nothing to stop drivers from using them. A year and a half ago, Brooklyn, Ohio, a small Cleveland suburb, was the only city in the country restricting the use of phones in cars. Patty was outraged and then became focused about what she had to do for her daughter.
I just felt an urgent need to tell everyone what I was discovering. I thought if this could happen to me, it could happen to them.
I don't want you to lose your child.
At first, it was just a few local interviews. She testified before her state legislature and then took her same message to suburban New York. There ought to be a law about phones and drivers.
It is disgusting that we now live in a world where a telephone call is more important than a life.
Hi, Aunt Cheryl.
And before she knew it, this small-town mom, who'd wanted nothing more than to watch her daughter grow up, had become the cell phone equivalent of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Now she has a website, a group called Advocates for Cell Phone Safety. There was even a big spread about her in People magazine.
How are you going to virtually take these out of people's hands?
We don't want to take them out of people's hands.
Because you can look at it as a safety device.
I still have my cell phone and will keep my cell phone and recommend you do too. You want to pull over and check your email and send a fax and phone a friend, go for it. I mean, that's fabulous, and isn't that wonderful technology? However, just don't use them while driving. Don't use any of it while you're driving.
This little girl was killed by someone who was using a cell phone.
Perhaps the most touching response to Patty's campaign has come from police officer Rich Hoven in Brooklyn, Ohio. He was so moved after meeting the Pennas on the Oprah show that he made them a promise.
I told them that I wouldn't let their little girl's name be forgotten.
Now every driver Hoven stops for violating his city's ban on handheld phones has to read about Morgan. And in her memory, he signed each ticket with her initials, MLP.
They have their head hanging down. They tell me that they understand, and they didn't realize how dangerous these things have become.
A nice gesture from a cop, but Patty is waging an uphill battle against the billion-dollar telecommunication industry that is resisting legislation restricting the use of phones while driving.
You can't legislate common sense.
Tom Wheeler is the president and CEO of the trade group that represents the cell phone industry. He maintains that it's up to drivers, not legislators, to prevent cell phones from becoming a distraction.
Are you saying, on behalf of the industry, that it is okay for people to use a cell phone while they're driving?
If the circumstances are appropriate. Clearly, it is not appropriate late at night on a winding road that's where it's rained and you're talking to your divorce lawyer.
But if it might put you in the emergency room or the morgue, why have it at all?
The question is, what's the best way to deal with it? The best way to communicate to people is through an education program, and that's what we're doing.
The wireless industry downplays the danger of cell phones, citing a recent AAA study that rated other distractions, like adjusting a radio or eating in the car, as more likely to cause accidents. Still, it has made public service announcements that urge drivers to use their phones responsibly.
Ask yourself, is this call necessary?
The wireless industry, as well as the car makers, are making a big push right now for this kind of technology, hands-free cell phones. The idea is it allows you to keep both hands on the wheel and your eyes ahead on the road. But there are some scientists who warn that hands-free doesn't necessarily mean risk-free. That's because there's some research that indicates that the mental strain of simply trying to hold a conversation while you're driving can be dangerous in itself.
It is a safety issue. It is real, and we have to solve it.
The danger is considered real enough that this May there was a congressional hearing on distracted driving. And there, amidst all the politicians and lobbyists, was Patty Penna.
And I am Morgan Lee Penna's mom.
The mom, whose battle to ban cell phones in cars has now taken her all the way to Washington. And on this day, as always, Patty turned a deaf ear to critics who insist we simply don't have enough accurate data yet to know for sure how dangerous or deadly cell phones really are. Because this mom isn't about to wait for a body count.
Anything to avoid another family going through this, another child dying in a ditch.
The Pennas have a new baby girl now, little Olivia. She's always close at Mom's side as she travels with her to her speaking engagements. And Olivia's arrival into the world has only made Patty more determined to get the word out.
You gonna step back, Patty, from the campaign, from the crusading?
I don't think I can. I wake up every day and I still miss my baby. I love Morgan Lee. You never stop loving your child. What do I do with that love? I channel it. It's the least I can do.
So far, only 6 American cities, all small ones, and 3 counties have banned the use of handheld cell phones while driving. Bans have been proposed in 40 states, but none has yet become law. And keep this in mind when you're driving. If you're on a busy road and want to make a call, don't just pull over to the side. That, too, can be dangerous. Just last month, a man who had moved to the shoulder of a highway to use his phone was struck and killed by another vehicle. Experts say the best thing to do is get away from all the traffic by pulling into a parking lot and then making your call.
Okay, got a pencil? It's time to take Dateline's distracted driving test. As you answer each question, give yourself the correct number of points. At the end, add them up, and we'll tell you your risk of being distracted while driving. Here we go.
When driving, do you use a cell phone? Rarely or never? Yes, a handheld phone.
Yes, a hands-free phone. Yes, and you also eat or read or write. Question 2. What's the longest you think you can safely look away from the road? 1 second, 2, 3, 4, or as long as 5 seconds? 3. When driving, are you usually relaxed, running late but not stressed out about it, or late and anxious? In this next question, choose all of the answers that apply to your usual driving routine. A long commute, heavy traffic, more than one passenger, kids in your car, a pet in your car, none of the above. Question 5. How old are you? Generally, younger and older drivers are more likely to be distracted. Question 6. What do you do in dense traffic? Closely follow the car in front. Keep a safe distance even if cars cut in front of you. Or do you avoid driving during peak hours? What do you do when you're driving and your cell phone rings? Always answer it? Only answer when it's safe? You don't have a cell phone, or you leave it turned off. Question 8, and again, choose all of the answers that apply to you. What do you regularly do when you drive? Adjust the temperature, the radio, or other controls? Adjust mirrors, your seat or seat belt? Change cassettes or CDs? Eat, brush your hair, apply makeup, or shave? Read a map or a newspaper? None of the above. What's the farthest you'll reach for something? The drink holder, the passenger seat, the glove box, the floor, the back seat or back floor? Our last question. When driving, do you often listen to music, books on tape, get so caught up in conversation or the radio that you get lost? None of the above. Now add up your points, and when we return, we'll tell you your risk. So how'd you do on Dateline's distracted driving test? If you scored anywhere between 1 and 110 points, you're at low risk of being distracted while driving. 111 to 190 points puts you at moderate risk. 191 points or higher means you're at high risk. For the past week, people have been taking this same test on our website. Let's see how those scores broke down. Take a look and see how your score stacks up. So, what can you do to reduce your risk of being distracted on the road? We'll start by adjusting your car's mirrors, climate control, and tape deck or CD player before you drive away. If the kids are fighting or if they need something, pull into a parking lot, then deal with it. Leave a little early so you're less likely to do other things while you're driving. And use your cell phone only if absolutely necessary. And then, as we mentioned earlier, pull into a parking lot or other safe area before making your call. For more tips, log on to our website. The address is dateline.msnbc.com. Keep your eyes and your mind on the road.
Dateline is a presentation of NBC News. More Americans watch NBC News than any other news organization in the world.